What is up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy, Motor City Don Pugh. We're back here once again. You already know what it is. It is not just another Victory Monday because we didn't get the victory Sunday. Can't have a victory Monday without a victory Sunday. So we got some things that we got to get into, but you know what it is. When you see me in front of TV, one thing is for certain and three things are for sure. Number one, the Motor City Cats are indeed back at it. Number two, we came to give you stats and not none of that static. And number three, perhaps the most important number of them all. We want to make sure you keep your Lions news pragmatic. And you may be asking yourself, how, Don, how, Mr. P, does one keep their Lions news pragmatic? Well, it's very simple. I'll tell you right now. I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Thank you. Smash the like button, subscribe, share. The next subscriber will be number 900, and we are on our way back. I'm going back to a thou wow. Said I'm going back to a thou wow. Anyway, as sharing is indeed caring, once you have shared this stream with your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, your cousins, your mothers, your sisters, your uncles, your fathers, your sisters, your mothers, your brothers, you name it. You name it. We have indeed cared about those people. What up, though, Tactical Sport? What up, though, everybody in the chat and everyone who is there, who is lurking and not talking? Because if you're not talking, you might not want to talk because we're about to have a real uncomfortable conversation. Oh, this conversation is going to get very, very uncomfortable, and it's going to get very, very uncomfortable very, very quickly. And I urge you, if you are the faint of heart, if you are a Detroit Lions fan who is delusional, if you are a Detroit Lions fan who is not like a Philly fan, because we're going to tell you why you should be more like the Philly fans. Listen, I don't like Philly fans. I got one of the most hated people in my life is from Philadelphia. And a true arch enemy who I hope never has any happiness in his life ever. He's from Philly. And I do not like the fans in Philly, but there is one thing that I like about the fans in Philly, and I'm going to tell you about that in a second here. But if you are faint of heart, if you can't do it, if you can't deal with the truth, this show is not for you. The door is over there. You may exit. Because if you come for me and I didn't send for you, you might not like what I have to say. Tactical Sport says that pass interference play was bogus. I finally seen it. I had turned off the game at that point. It was bogus, but it really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And I'll tell y'all why. Chakayam 1305, what up though, says we'll never win a championship with a slow-footed coward under center. The Rams saw that they couldn't win with him in pressure situations. That's why they got rid of him. Tell us how you really feel. Tell us how you really feel. He said he's a slow-footed coward. Damn. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it, man. We're going to pull up some numbers because I generally don't do numbers. I do eye tests, as y'all know. But we've got to support what we see. As you know, the Detroit Lions lost to the Philadelphia Eagles 16-9. It was a 7-point game. Wasn't that bad, right? Wasn't that bad? It was much like last Sunday night's game where the Packers lost by 3 and no one could score anything. It was a 7-point and a 10-point, and that's it. Well, here we had a 9-point and a 16-point, and that was it. Neither offense played particularly well. The difference is one offense scored 7 more points than the other. That was the difference. Okay. Now, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. And I feel like Stephen A. Smith, I feel like I got to do a ticker. Every time he talks about LeBum, he has to qualify what he's saying by heaping praise on him first, by putting his balls in his mouth and gargling and swishing around and applying mouthwash and toothpaste with that man's balls in his mouth, pause, before he can say anything negative. And I feel the same way about our quarterback, one Mr. Jared Thomas Goff. I feel like I'm the most qualified, one of the most qualified people to talk about this. And I have to couch this every single time because there are people that call me golf phobic. Those people probably won't be here today. There are people that say whatever they want to say. I've been called a casual. And I think you guys have realized, if you didn't know before this season, I think you've realized there is nothing casual about me and my football knowledge. So here's my ticker. When Goff came here, I wanted him on the first thing smoking, out of here. He looked awful. He looked downright disgusting. Year number 1. But we didn't have any talent. We didn't have an offensive line. We didn't have anything. Okay? As he went through year 2, 3, he won me over because he played better. He played better. And then we got to the NFC Championship game with Jared Goff. We lost the NFC Championship game not because of Jared Goff. We lost that because Josh Reynolds dropped passes, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled, and people were missing tackles and blowing assignments on defense. Then comes the Washington Commanders game. Jared Goff turns the ball over 4 times. I try to tell people that that's why you lose. And people call me golf-phobic, and people call me a casual, and people say it was the defense, and it was all the injuries, and so on and so forth. And Jalen and Jaden Daniels was just too good. But Jared Goff fumbled and threw 3 picks. No, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't. It was. Okay. So I've given Jared Goff his props. And I've held Jared Goff accountable when he needs to be held accountable. And that's what I'm going to continue to do today. I'm not going to deviate. I'm going to stay consistent. Right? We're going to start this by talking about my guy. Appreciate you. Chakayam, if I'm saying that the right way. Appreciate you. I'm going to start this by talking about my guy, J-Mo. Y'all know I'm the official keeper of the J-Mo. And everybody that doesn't like J-Mo found me and talked about J-Mo humping the goalpost and how it was so stupid and how it cost us points. And guess what? If J-Mo didn't hump the goalpost, we would have lost 16-10 instead of 16-9. Fantastic. J-Mo humped the goalpost, which he shouldn't have done. It's a stupid rule, but it's a rule. But J-Mo's the only one that got into the end zone. So if you want to take his touchdown away and say how he's such a cancer and how he's such this, that, and the third thing, that's fine. Then your score is 3-16. You see how that works? I can hold him accountable, but in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. Okay, we lost a point. It didn't matter. People want to work in hypotheticals, but if he didn't, if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. It didn't matter. He's the only person that got in the box. That's it. No one else did. Amon-Ra didn't get in the box. We're going to talk about Amon-Ra. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't get in the box. David Montgomery didn't get in the box. Brock Wright didn't get in the box. He should have. We're going to talk about that too. Dan Skipper didn't get in the box. Penei Sewell didn't get in the box. Taylor Decker didn't get in the box. Nobody got in the box. Jared Goff didn't get in the box. J-Mo is the only one. This is the only one. So we can talk about the penalty all we want. Okay, cool. It cost us a point. Awesome. We needed more points than what we got cost. Significantly more. Right? It wasn't a situation where we were down by 4, and because J-Mo did what he did, we couldn't kick a field goal to tie the game and go into overtime. No. We needed significantly more points. So there were people coming in and talking, oh, your boy J-Mo, this, that, and the third thing. Brother, I'm watching the defense give up the only touchdown that mattered. Was this game on the defense? Absolutely not. When we talk about the numbers of both quarterbacks, you're going to see that it was absolutely not on the defense. The defense played phenomenally. They played their asses off, and the offense didn't support them. We didn't play complimentary football. It just didn't happen. Okay? He scores the only touchdown, and they stop throwing to him. Jared Goff threw another one to the other club. See, okay, now, here's the other thing I'm not going to do. What up, though, Zach J? I'm not going to blame Jared Goff for a tipped interception. Okay? There are far more egregious interceptions, and you're saying another one. He's got 4 on the year in 10 games. So I'm not going to do that. See, that's what I'm saying. I stay balanced. All right? I stay balanced. Shep kept us in the game. Facts. The Jared Goff interception was not necessarily Jared Goff's fault, because that was the first batted ball, and it was on like the 3rd play of the game. Now, once you realize what they were doing, you shouldn't have allowed 5 more batted balls. Let's just go ahead and dive into the numbers, okay? Because more people are here now, and I promise you that I would dive into the numbers. All right. Jalen Hurts was 14 of 28 for 135 yards. No touchdowns. 50% completion for an NFL quarterback. Okay. Shout out to our defense. Jared Goff was 14 of 37, which is less than 50%. 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Shout out to their defense. However, one of these quarterbacks looked like he was pooping the bed. The other quarterback just looked like, and you know why the other one just looking like worked for him? It's because he can move the ball in other ways. Let me get this exactly to just be exact, because I want to be exact, because I said it's less than. Let me look up the actual. Let me do a little bit of math here. Pull out my trusty dusty calculator and say 14 divided by 37 is 37.8%. If you want to be nice, 38%. But you don't do that with completion percentages. Jared Goff was 37.8% on the night. If you're defending that, if you're saying that it wasn't Jared Goff's fault, if you were saying, oh, everybody was dropping passes, you're a liar. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep it a buck today. Okay? Because this is about holding people accountable. This is about speaking the truth. When you make a good play, you made a good play. When you make a bad play, you made a bad play. We're going to do that, and we're going to move on, because this is a channel, and this is a podcast which is supported by Detroit Lions fans. We're all fans of the Detroit Lions. Some of us were born in other places other than Detroit, and they became somehow fans of the Detroit Lions through their fathers or their brothers or their cousins or best friends, or however you became a Lions fan, not born and raised in Detroit. Some of us were born and raised in Detroit, and they live elsewhere now, like myself. But I was in the city of Detroit watching Barry. I was in the Silverdome watching Barry. So we're all fans of the Detroit Lions, and we all want the Detroit Lions to win. Here's where I say we should be more like Philadelphia fans. Philadelphia fans don't take losing from the team laying down. They point the finger where the finger needs to be pointed. They put pressure on the organization, and that is why Howie Roseman does the things that he does. You know why Howie Roseman does the things that he does? Because he watched himself or Jeffrey Lurie have to fire Doug Peterson the year after winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Howie Roseman has been fired from the Philadelphia Eagles before. Howie Roseman understands how hot the seat gets in Philadelphia. That's why Howie Roseman does the things that he does, and we're going to get into that a little bit later too. So if it's Jared Goff, if it's Jahmyr Gibbs, if it's J-Mo, right? Now let's say J-Mo did what he did and we lost by 1 point. And he did it, let's say, okay, because when it happens matters. He did it in the fourth quarter, and it was in the last minute of the game, and we scored the touchdown, and we were going to tie it or go ahead. And then because of him doing that, that 1 point caused us to not be able to tie and not get the ball back, or it caused us to go to overtime, in which we also had another opportunity and lost. But what I'm trying to point out is, if it's 1 point in a situation where we scored in the first half and you had all these opportunities to score going forward and you didn't, well, you can't lament 1 point. You can only lament 1 point or one score in a situation where you don't have the opportunity to score any more. Go back to the Washington Commanders game. 3 interceptions probably would have kept us in, we could have probably gone to overtime. 4 interceptions and a strip sack fumble that the Commanders recover caused us to lose by 14 points. Nobody's lamenting all the turnovers if you win. And the Texans game was a regular season game. It was not a playoff game. I'm gonna get to your comments. I know y'all champing at the bit. I'm gonna get to your comments and I'm gonna answer them. But I got to get this off. I got to get this off because I've been seeing so much of this BS. Hold accountable who's accountable. Jahmyr Gibbs, the electrician. I got all types of love and nicknames for this dude. His fumble in the NFC Championship was part of the storm. I'm not going to take that out and say it doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, was it the only thing? No. Did it help us win? No, because we lost. He fumbled, and they immediately scored after that. And we lost by 3 points. They scored a touchdown, not giving them opportunity to score that 7 would have helped us win, right? So we put blame where the blame is. And that also goes up above the head of Jared Goff to Dan Campbell, if Dan Campbell deserves blame. For the most part, the play calling wasn't the problem. There were a few decisions there that even Dan Campbell will admit that he wants back, but you can't be perfect. I understand why you run the ball up the middle, and I understand why you do it with Jahmyr Gibbs. But here's the thing that a lot of fans don't understand. Why weren't they just running tosses and sweeps? Because it's the NFL. It's not college. It's very difficult to beat an NFL defense east and west because their linebackers are fast, their defensive ends are fast. But you know who doesn't have a fast defensive end on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson? The Detroit Lions. Because I saw Tyler Lacey, who is 300 pounds, playing defensive end, trying to chase down Saquon Barkley, who had got around the edge because he wasn't able to set it. That's not going to work. But for the most part, the Eagles didn't really run the ball well. They didn't do much well on offense. They really didn't because the defense clamped them down. So I don't have much blame to go around for the defense. The fact that Tyler Lacey is out there playing defensive end, that's a Brad Holmes problem, and we're going to get to that in a second. Jared Goff looked like trash. He looked like poop. He didn't play well. He didn't adjust to them getting their hands up. That's why they had 6 batted balls. He threw bad passes. He missed receivers. He force-fed Amon-Ra 12 targets with 2 catches. Is crazy. What were you doing? There are other people in the game that you can throw the football to. There was another situation, I think it was the Vikings game, in which Amon-Ra St. Brown had 13 targets and 5 receptions. Stop force-feeding him the football. I understand your connection, and a year ago, y'all had the, if Amon-Ra St. Brown is targeted by Jared Goff in a minimum of 500 targets, is at 80% completion rate. And that's unheard of, and that's the most in NFL history. Yawn. Because it didn't work yesterday. And if it ain't working in the game, you need to be able to adjust from that. I understand that's your guy. I understand that. But J-Mo, hey, that guy? Huh? The guy that can take it from the 20 and go 80 with no problems? The guy that can take it from the 20 and go 80 more with no problems. Throw him the ball. Hey, how about instead of trying to throw you're under pressure, you're looking for Amon-Ra St. Brown in the back of the end zone while Brock Wright leaks out completely uncovered and wide open, would have walked in. He could have called in for the touchdown. All you had to do was look to your right, but you were too busy trying to lock in on Amon-Ra St. Brown. That was a Jared Goff problem. And here's the facts. If you guys want to go look at the pressure stats, last week versus the Washington Commanders, Jared Goff was under more pressure than he was against the Philadelphia Eagles. He got pressured more times against the Washington Commanders than he did against the Philadelphia Eagles. Go look it up. Just go look at it. Jared Goff wasn't good in this game. If you have a problem with that, there's something wrong with you. You have a problem with the truth. I've told this story. I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again because sometimes fans need to hear this stuff. When I was a child, I watched Michael Jordan go against the Bad Boys Pistons, and I would say things like Michael Jordan sucks. Michael Jordan's garbage. Michael Jordan, he ain't really even that good. Today, as an adult, I'll tell you that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Today, as an adult, I will tell you, I don't like LeBum personally, but I'm not going to say he's not a top 10, not top 5. I'm not going to say that because I'm a freaking adult and I'm not an idiotic moron or a child. Because children say stuff that doesn't have any logic because they're kids. You're a child. So if you said that Jared Goff was not to blame for this loss, Jared Goff, the captain, the leader of the offense, the captain, the leader of the team, the guy that makes $50 million a year, if you don't expect him to play better, then you're either a child or something else. Which one is it? So let's just face facts. The defense played phenomenally. The offense played like crap. The guy that touches the football every time was 37.8% completion. He had over 70. His season average is over 70% on accuracy. Yes, we should expect more from a guy who was leading the league, the entire league, in accuracy. We should expect way more than 37.8%, which is less than half of what he had. We should expect more. We should be able to say that was a bad game. You played up just like you did with the Vikings and you had a bad game. Not so much the Cleveland Browns. The Philadelphia Eagles pose a threat to you with pressure up the middle. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And guess who else did that? The Minnesota Vikings. Did the offensive line protect Goff the way they should have? No. They didn't. They didn't. But you got to be able to adjust the protections. And it wasn't even about sacks all the time. Dudes were just getting their hands up. You got 6 batted balls. At what point? And then they told you after the game, yeah, they saw something on tape. And they knew to get their hands up. So that was something that they saw on tape about how Jared Goff throws the football. And once Jared Goff threw balls into the line and they were getting batted, there wasn't an adjustment. The offensive line is not Jared Goff's fault. And we'll talk about that next. Let me get to y'all comments because I know they've been rolling in. All right. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but he needs perfect situation to be successful, and he can't handle pressure well. This is the overlying theme, and I can't disagree with you today. Yes, Jalen Hurts leads the Eagles. We had a Jared Goof game. That's all. And he's good for one per year. Maybe we don't have that one in the playoffs now. The Rams recognize that Goff struggles in the games that matter, and I think we are also realizing that. Some of us are realizing that. West Side. The sad truth is that Goff has to have everything perfect to succeed. If the O-line isn't quite up to snuff, this is what we get. Yep, exactly, Tactical. That's why Brad Holmes has thrown so much at making the offense what it is. Aha. Wrong. 1 second. He has, but he also hasn't. People around here rather like someone than be a winner. Facts. This dude can say this today. I'm just gonna, and I usually don't say, I usually don't read this. Ron Winarski says, bear down, we are first. He can say that today. And we can't say anything about it. Congratulations, Lions. You made the Bears first in the division. Nah. He gets to say it. They're first in the division. They're first in the division. And it might be the only week. It might be, right? Because if they lose next week and we win, then by virtue of beating them, we're back in first. So hey, let him have his 6 days. It's all good. Hey, the reason is he ain't lying, and he didn't say anything malicious. He said the facts, and we got to deal with that. We got to deal with that for the entire week. The Lions have to deal with the fact that the Bears are first, right? Again, I'm not gonna be mad at him. No, they're not officially some damn buffs. I'm not gonna block him. Had he come in here yesterday, I would. It's called delusional bias. Tough loss lines yesterday, Lions, but it helped my Bears. Facts. We did. We're not ready for the Super Bowl. We can't beat the Super Bowl teams. Facts. All right. Now, here's the thing. Speaking of, I'm glad you said that, Will Murray, because that segues right into my next point. Excuse me while I can take a sip. Two reasons I did that. One, hashtag if you know, you know. Two, Kermit the Frog. Because I'm going to say something, but that ain't none of my business. We have to go back to the draft. I'm not going to say I was right in the position that I wanted. But when I saw Brad Holmes trade 2 third-round picks, if you were here with me, you know what I did. You know I was standing up at the desk. And I was like, we're going to stand up on the line, boy, and see what's what. Because I thought we were going to go get somebody on the defensive line. I thought we were getting, and I don't remember who was there exactly, but I thought we were going to get him, possibly. I don't know if I thought it was Mike Green, because I don't think I ever thought Mike Green was coming here. But when they announced Isaac TeSlaa was the pick, I immediately crashed out. And you sick MFs was around here giving this man nicknames. This man had 6 targets. Y'all was trying to give him all types of Tron names, which I thought was stupid. And I said it to you. I said, this is stupid. Let the dude play in a game. Stop trying to compare him to Calvin Johnson. And all y'all just Mayotron, Vanillatron, this Tron, that Tron, the third Tron. I joined in just trying to give him something that wasn't a Tron. We was calling him White Boy Rick. And what was the other one that I came up with? Don't remember. Okay. But all this stuff, the man has 1 touchdown. He has 6 targets. He is a gunner on special teams. Last night, let me ask you what you needed. Did you need a gunner on special teams? Did you need a wide receiver that in week 11 has 6 targets and contributed nothing to the offense? Really? I mean, he did have a good catch in was it the Vikings game or was it another game? But the touchdown that he caught was in the Packers game, which was in garbage time, which was the only touchdown that we scored that game. It didn't help us to win. Did you need that, or did you need an offensive lineman or 2? Because you gave up 2 third-round picks to get him. This is the Howie Roseman conversation. Buckle up and strap in. Howie Roseman saw that his defense needed to be strengthened. I'm not going to say it needed to get better. It just needed to be strengthened because not as good as it could be. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They didn't have a pass rush. So what did he do? He goes out and he gets Zadarius Smith while we sat on our hands. Now, everyone that wants to talk about Zadarius Smith is washed, blah, 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 blah. I can guarantee you, I don't know Zadarius Smith. I'm not in his camp. I can guarantee you Zadarius Smith is playing right now for the Detroit Lions if the Detroit Lions would have, 1, not even cut him, 2, brought him back as he was campaigning to get back to the Detroit Lions. He would not have retired. But when you go and do something and your heart's not in it, his heart was in Detroit. My man came here with the Rasheed Wallace jersey on, had the buffs, got a fake Detroit Lions Super Bowl ring made, was showing up at Pistons games, loved the city, freaking, got into a relationship with Cash Doll. He doesn't retire in the middle of the season if he's in Detroit. I'm sorry, you just can't convince me otherwise. That's neither here nor there. He did retire. So what does Howie Roseman do? Does he rest on his laurels and say, well, I tried? No, Howie Roseman goes out and he takes a 3rd-round pick and he gives it to the Miami Dolphins for Jaelan Phillips. And guess who had a sack in this game? Jaelan Phillips. Because the reports were that the Detroit Lions offered a 4th and a 5th for Jaelan Phillips. And Miami said, girl, screw yourself, because we're going to take the 3rd. Had you had the 3rd and you really wanted to get into a bidding war, you could have gotten into a bidding war because you had the ammunition. But if you don't have the ammunition because you are picking wide receivers who you don't need this year, who is not helping your team this year, then this is the type of stuff that happens. It's even more glaring when you're compared to Howie Roseman. And then Howie Roseman, you go into his house and his team dominates your team. Did they dominate us in all the phases? No, but they dominated us in the phase that counted, which was stopping us from scoring more than we could stop them from scoring. Because it wasn't a shootout by any means. And we did sack Jalen Hurts one time. But Jaelan Phillips is better than El-Quadin Muhammad. He's for sure better than Tyler Lacy, who you've now got starting over El-Quadin Muhammad. The problem wasn't the defense. The problem was the offense. The problem was the offensive line. You had 2 third-round picks, and the receiver is what you got for them, instead of getting an additional offensive lineman. Now you got Miles Frazier. That's great. He's hurt. Going into the draft, did you know Frank Ragnow was retired? Going into the draft, did you know that? I just want to know. Can anybody tell me in the chat? Show of hands. I'm gonna get to your comments now, and in some way answer my question, and I'll continue. Brad loves receivers. He loves something. Those nicknames were ridiculous. Facts. Calvin Johnson closer to Calvin Klein because he's modeling out there. He's modeling. You know, he ain't playing a whole lot of football. Exactly. White boy Rick. Appreciate you, Rod. Oh, Norman, we still have a chance. Nobody's saying the season is over. We're 6-4. We're out of the playoffs right now, but a win next week, and we're back into the lead for the division. You know, so I just the Bears, and they do. Laporta was missed out there. So was Brock Wright. He was missed wide open in the end zone. But that Brad wish he had 1 third-round pick for trade ammo. SMH. Facts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He is. All right. The defense was fine. Our defense held the Eagles to 16. Why can't our historical offense put up 40-plus points? The defense was fine. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't the defense. Okay. You would imagine that the Lions knew about Ragnow's future. Goff's gloves were a problem. He was overthrowing and misplacing balls all night. Goff has to wear gloves when it gets cold because you know the whole thing about Goff having small hands. So it kind of, it helps him more than it hurts him. That's why he wears the gloves when it's cold. All right. So going into the draft, you knew about Frank Ragnow's future. And you still traded 2 third-round picks to get Isaac TeSlaa. At some point, Brad Holmes has done a phenomenal job. He's drafted everyone that there is to draft. He drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. He drafted Jameson Williams. He drafted Brian Branch. He drafted Kirby Joseph. He drafted Jack Campbell. He drafted. But gambling, a lot of people don't like the fact that Dan Campbell went for it so many times on 4th down. To this point, it's won us enough games that we have to understand and realize that this is how we play football in Detroit. We're going to go for it on 4th down. When Usama came back up in here, they asked him, did he feel like Dan was like rubbing it in his face by going for it on 4th down? He said, no, that's what they do. They don't like to punt. They go for it on 4th down. That's what we do. A lot of people don't like the fact that he gambles because they're all for it when we win, But it's always the problem when we lose. Well, here's a gamble that I'm talking about that shows up later. Brad Holmes gambling in the draft. Brad Holmes gambled on Broderick Martin. He treats third round picks as if they don't matter. That's the problem. You're giving up third rounders to get a fourth rounder in freaking Manu. You're giving up third rounders to get a guy that wouldn't have even been drafted in Broderick Martin. You're giving up third rounders to get a wide receiver who has 1 touchdown and 6 targets and is a gunner on special teams when we need offensive line help. We were going into the season with Tate Ratledge, who was a rookie, okay, because we drafted him in the second round. In the first round, you drafted Tyleik Williams, which, again, I don't know that that was the greatest pick. Tyleik had a good game last night. Okay, cool. Aleem McNeil was coming back. Roy Lopez is doing his thing. He's even surpassed Tyleik Williams in the rotation. Offensive line is the key to this football team. It allows us to establish the run, and it allows us to use play action to open up our passing game. It allows our quarterback to see and make reads and throw the ball properly and accurately, which he was the leader before this game in the clubhouse for accuracy. Throughout the entire NFL, Jared Goff was the most accurate quarterback in the entire NFL. He's pretty much led the league the last 3 years in accuracy. He's been top 3, if not number 1, in accuracy over the last 3 years. So when you started understanding that Frank Ragnow was going to be retired, I don't give a damn who you picked. If you wanted to go offensive line for the entire draft, I would have been upset that you didn't get a defensive end, but I would have understood, especially now with hindsight being 2020. I really wanted you to get an edge rusher, but I just wanted you to get one in the first round. But you got a defensive tackle who's now not even the starter. So if you weren't going to get a starting edge rusher, well, maybe you could have got yourself a starting tackle or a starting guard, because you knew Taylor Decker had gotten surgery on his shoulder. You know how many games he's missed due to injury. You know his body is breaking down. You know he doesn't have long. So now what are you going to have to do? The next offseason is going to have to be all trenches. And you put yourself in that position because you had 2 third-round picks that you could have either used in the draft, or you could have used one of them in the draft and one of them to acquire a someone at the deadline. Brad Holmes got schooled by Howie Roseman last night. Brad Holmes' team couldn't beat Howie Roseman's team. Brad Holmes has done a phenomenal job. Brad Holmes has drafted everybody on this team that we know and love. Unless you love Jared Goff, and Brad Holmes didn't draft him, but he acquired him in the trade. He wanted him in the trade. But all this getting cute and trading all these freaking draft picks for a freaking gunner on special teams, bro. And it's nothing against Isaac TeSlaa. It's nothing against the player. He's a Detroit Lion. Fantastic. But he didn't help you yesterday. And he didn't help you against the Vikings. And he's not going to help you against any team that has a ferocious defensive front. Because what's going to help you in those games is a freaking offensive line. When I do my mock drafts in this offseason, it's going to be offensive line and defensive line. I'm not picking no receivers. I'm not picking no running backs. Nobody. It's all trenches. And that's what we need. But now we're in a situation in which we can't get any trench help. Miles Frazier could come back and be phenomenal. Awesome. Right? But then what if that's too little too late? What if Miles Frazier comes back next week and we run the table, but we just miss out on the number 1 seed? And then we have to play 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. And then we get to the NFC Championship game again, and it's on the road, and we lose by a point. And then let's say we missed out on the number 1 seed by 1 game. Well, you know what? All you needed was an offensive line a little bit sooner. So that's how this stuff works. So I put this one also on the head of Brad Holmes. Because you're out there at the trade deadline doing nothing. And I know you were making calls, but you know what? No one was budging because they didn't want your 4th or your 5th or your 6th or your 7th. Some of them wanted your 3rd. And guess what you couldn't do? Couldn't give it to them because you wasted them on Isaac Tesla. Comments. All right. I think that Melvin thinks that he has drafted his team and that he doesn't need to tweak it or add to it. I also believe that Melvin thinks he is the smartest person in the room. It's starting to look that way, and I had hoped that it wouldn't. How is that folks seem to forget the Lions went into the season with 3 new starters on the O-line? Oh, we don't forget. We don't forget at all. But that's why you needed contingency plans. You needed a contingency plan for Graham Glasgow because Graham Glasgow didn't particularly play well last season when filling in for Frank Ragnow. Yeah, okay. Now that's cap. That's cap. With the way that our offense is tied to the O-line, there shouldn't be a year that we don't drive something along the O-line. We should already have a solid backup ready for all players on the O-line. Facts. I don't disagree. Glasgow is okay to be the center for a game or two, not for the whole season. Howie made a move at the deadline and Brad didn't. Both showed last night. Facts. Bro, if we take a T in round 1, I'm freaking a riot. That's that's some Bob Quinn stuff. Yes, he knows I feel this way about Brad. Bradley Matthias, Melvin, Bradley Matthias, Cornelius, Jerome Holmes. Yeah, he does. Why did you take a T in the first round? We didn't draft a T, we drafted a football player. Yeah, yeah, and that would piss me off. I'm not sure where you're coming from. Yeah, I'm lost on that one. Thanks though. I guess they cheat on the East Coast is what you're trying to say? I have no idea. Okay. Does anybody know who this is? Now I'm not from Detroit. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with this. All right. So you know what time it is? I've talked about it. I'm gonna give you your chance to talk about it. Um, actually, you know what? Since I didn't do this yesterday because I was so pissed off, and I turned the stream off early. But I wanted to give you guys a chance to call in. So if anybody wants to call in while I'm waiting for the mailbag question, mailbag, what you want to do? What you want to do when they're reading you? Mailbag, snick, mailbag. Get your mailbag questions in. Get them in. Bask in it. So anybody that wants to call in, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat, and you know what to do. Leave your camera on, leave your camera off, whatever it is that you like. Honestly, if we traded and got Myles Garrett, we would still be in the same place because our offense can't score. If we traded and got Myles Garrett, I don't think our offense would need to score anything but 3 points a game. Because Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson would be nasty. Yeah, I don't think it's the case. When I heard we were counting on Gigi for starting center, I wasn't thrilled. He proved last year that he's a serviceable backup, and that's it. Ron, you can call in, but you might not want to. Last week, folk were doing backflips when Coach Campbell allegedly took over play calling. How well did that decision age in the matter of a week? I don't think it was the play calling that was really the problem. I really don't. Those play calls didn't call for Amon-Ra St. Brown to be force fed the ball 12 times. He may be your first option in most play calls, but that doesn't mean you have to throw to him. The Brock Wright touchdown that should have happened, that never was because Jared Goff was busy looking for locking on to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's not like nobody told him to do that. Brock Wright was the play design. It was a perfectly designed play. It got your tight end open for the touchdown. You just didn't throw it to him. So, yeah, I'm not gonna put that on the play calling. We need to open more holes for Monty to run through. A lot of folks like to talk about somebody's QBR. What was Jared Goff's last night? I don't do QBR. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was like very, very low. The plays were fine. Goff had some issues. I still like Goff, but WTF. Those calls that Dan called were good calls. Right. There was just no execution of the calls. Mike Kafka is the interim GM for the New York Football Giants. He's named Jameis Winston as his QB. He's leading the huddle. What's he got left come Sunday? I think Jackson Dart might be back. Did they fire Joe Shine too? Oh, that's awesome. His QBR was 88.9. Isn't that much higher than what it should be? Where do you think the Giants are going to attack defensively after watching the Eagles work? Up the middle with Sexy Dexy and and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, and we just signed a new OL. His name is Swiss Cheese. Must be from Sweden or something. He must be. He must be. So how is he the interim GM if the GM still? How does that work? How does that even work? Wait a minute. How are you an interim GM if the GM still works there? If the GM didn't get fired? That's crazy. That doesn't make sense. I've never seen or heard of that before ever. That's crazy. Okay, hold on. Yeah, because you said Mike Kafka is the interim GM. That's why I said that. See, it says GM. I like, am I crazy? Yeah. Okay. The assistant to the assistant manager. um and Jameis didn't play poorly against the Packers. I mean, the Packers, man, the Packers are all the way fraudulent. They have all of the problems with the worst teams. Okay. I was about to say 88.9 is high for what we saw last night. Oh, autofill. Yeah, I'm not worried about Jameis Winston. Um, because offensively, who do they have? I mean, we just went up against Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, and they didn't do too much offensively. So I'm not worried about whoever the Giants got. They're missing Malik Neighbors, Cam Scottaboo, maybe Jackson Dart. Like, I'm not worried about what they got on offense. The horse is prepared for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. What is this about? Aaron Rodgers, is Aaron Rodgers not playing? Is he out or something? What happened to Aaron Rodgers? Because there was something about Mason Rudolph being the quarterback of the Steelers. Oh Lord. Somebody broke into Shadur's house while he was playing. These people are ridiculous, bro. Also, I was watching a stream from a Philly podcast yesterday, and their fans were saying the same things about their team that we say about ours. They hate their offense not being able to score. Oh, yeah. That's been a thing. That's been a thing for them all season. It's been about firing their offensive coordinator. Wow. Wow. Well, the Bears are going 8-3. Unless the Steelers defense can be the Steelers defense of old. That's freaking crazy, man. That's crazy. Well, I guess Kirby won't be able to be his daddy again, which is a shame. That's shameful. Um, who we got for Monday night? Ugh, Cowboys and Raiders. I don't even think I'm gonna watch that. Anybody watching the Cowboys and the Raiders on Monday night? Darius Slay is with the Steelers now. That is correct. Nope. um, so I'll end off with this. I'll give y'all some hope, man. You know, the Lions are a good team. Um, the Lions will bounce back, I think, against the Giants. I don't care about so all this they never lose 2 games in a row. You can go 8-8 by not losing 2 games in a row. That's possible. Well, not 8-8 anymore, but you know what I mean. When you could go 500, you could go 500 by not losing 2 games in a row. So I don't care about that. They don't lose 2 games in a row. I just don't think that they're going to lose to the Giants in that way, even though they do have a dominant defensive front. Um, I just with Dan Campbell calling the plays and being part of the game planning, I just don't think they're going to make the same mistakes twice. I just don't. And we're at home, so what is that? A 1:00 game, most likely. It's football, right? Yeah, I guess. What we're gonna do about our O line? Can't do anything at this point. Um, you got to call different protections. You got to put, you know, heaven forbid you run some boot action with Jared Goff. I know that's not his strong suit, but you got to move the pocket some kind of way. Um, you can't keep letting him stand up there and look at pressure coming into his lap because he doesn't do a great job handling it. Oh my God, Lord have mercy. See, and when you tell me like and that's the thing that I was thinking about. I don't care. Like, so yes, we want DJ Reed to come back. Yes, we want Kirby Joseph to come back. Yes, we want all these guys back because it makes our defense even better, that much better. But my concern wasn't, oh man, we're missing Kirby Joseph tonight. Oh man, we're missing Terrion Arnold tonight. Oh man, we're missing DJ Reed tonight. I'm not even going to say the other guy's name. That wasn't my concern because the defense played outstanding. That last pass interference call, which I didn't talk about because it didn't affect the game. All you're saying is, well, we had a chance. We had 15 drives prior, not 15, but you know what I'm saying. And we only produced 9 points. So I don't want to hear about, oh, we had a chance. That call, while egregious, didn't lose us the game. What lost us the game was our inability to score and be productive on offense for the entirety of the game. That's what lost us the game, not one call. And I know because it hurts more because it was a one possession game. And you're like, well, if we had another chance, bro, how many chances do you need? So, yeah, Dan Campbell told Rock Ya-Sin, I don't know how much better you could have played it. That was Dan Campbell saying, I don't want to say it was a horrible call because I don't want to get fined. But he said, I told him, keep playing it how you playing it. Play it like that all the time. You're competing. That's what they want to call whatever. But that didn't lose us the game. Why you have to find a new one? He might have. We know that the offensive line isn't great. But we do know that they responded to being thrown under the bus and being taken over by a guy who believes in them and doesn't do anything but talk good about them. They responded, and that's why we put up 44 last week. Let Shep call the plays next game. He does. He calls the defensive play. Well, Shep was very on board with the Tyleik Williams pick, so. Bear down is a garbage saying LOL bear down as in a bear is down or hurt, or bear down like you're bearing down on a wiener. I mean, I know what they're trying to say, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of ways you can construe that. So it's yeah. Pimp down, pimp in distress, 11:30. Hashtag if you know, use the hashtag. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here and cry myself to sleep because apparently. Hey man, if you sound educated. All right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah. You can hear me. Okay. When's the last time? What's the last thing you heard? Because I don't know when it went out. I looked over and I saw the levels weren't gone. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, y'all. Uh, what I was talking about the Bears and the Glizzies. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stab out. As I said, I got stuff I got to do. Tomorrow we will hopefully. I don't know. I'm too much more about this game. We put it to rest. It's dead and gone. I'll see. Injury news, people coming back from injury, whatever the case may be, we'll talk about it. But we always find a way to talk about something every day. So for a drinking conversation, because I definitely had a drink. That ain't none of my business. Once again, the Motor City Cats are indeed back at it. We came to give you stats, none of that static. Whatever you do, make sure you keep your lines news pragmatic. And we are out. Peace.